The pre-dawn hours in the mansion were frigid. Ryan mopped the living room floor, while his twin sister Lauren scrubbed the window panes, her hands red and swollen. Not a word was permitted. Isabel had made it clear, "If I hear a sound, you sleep in the garage." The two were only 11, but the expressions on their faces belonged to people far older. The silence was so heavy, the only sound was the slosh of dirty water across the marble floor. Lucy, the housekeeper, entered through the side kitchen, clutching her damp uniform. She had been working in this house for 10 years, since before Isabel arrived. In the early days, Ryan and Lauren would laugh, play, and beg for hugs when she got there. Now, they didn't even lift their gaze when she passed. What had changed? That woman, that stepmother who had promised love and care, and instead brought darkness. Lucy felt a tightness in her chest, watching the children's small, trembling hands as they cleaned. "You're still here?" A cold voice cut through the pre-dawn quiet. It was Isabel, in her white silk pajamas, descending the staircase as if she were floating. She pointed at Ryan. "That corner over there, you missed a spot." Ryan threw himself to the floor immediately, redoing the entire section. Isabel smiled, that soap opera villain smile that never reached her eyes. She turned to Lucy with disdain. "And you? Is the kitchen finished?" Lucy just nodded, swallowing her rage. But no one knew what happened on those nights. No one saw when Isabel humiliated the twins in the kitchen in the dead of night, forcing them to redo perfect work. No one heard their muffled sobs in their rooms. No one noticed the two were getting thinner and thinner, with dark purple circles under their eyes. Their father, Albert, spent weeks traveling for work, and when he returned, Isabel would whisper things in his ear. "Ryan and Lauren were unruly while you were away." He believed every word. Lucy put away her uniform and readied her cell phone, hiding it deep in her bag. Her eyes welled with tears when she saw Lauren asleep on her feet while cleaning the window. The child had a math test tomorrow. But how could she study if she spent the whole night working? How could she concentrate when she was hungry? How could she hold on to hope when her own stepmother whispered she was a burden, just one more mouth to feed? Lucy took a deep breath and made a silent decision. The phone's camera was disguised as a keychain. No one would notice. From that day on, she had begun to secretly record everything, every humiliation, every cruel order, every tear that fell while the twins worked. 3 months of footage stored on a flash drive hidden in her umbrella. 3 months of evidence that no one imagined existed. Lucy knew she was risking her job, but those children needed help, and she would be that help. When the long night finally ended, Ryan and Lauren collapsed onto their beds without even changing their clothes. Lucy covered them gently, kissing each on the forehead. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. "I'm going to take care of you." But in that moment, she couldn't imagine what was coming. She couldn't know that one shocking event just a week away would reveal everything. That their father would discover the truth in a way so devastating he would never be the same. That Isabel would get exactly what she deserved. It all began when Isabel entered that house 2 years ago. Albert, a widower for 5 years, had met the woman at a corporate event. She was beautiful, sophisticated, and spoke of motherly love and completing the family. Albert, who was still healing from the death of his first wife, believed every word. He married Isabel within 3 months. The twins, only 9 years old at the time, went to sleep as innocent children and woke up in a kingdom of ashes. None of them understood what had changed, but they all felt it. Lucy had started working in that Greenwich mansion when Ryan and Lauren were born. Albert's first wife, Marianne, was sweet and gentle. She asked Lucy to look after the children when she traveled, trusting her completely. When Marianne died in a car accident, Lucy cried for weeks. Ryan and Lauren would cling to her, crying, "We want our mom." Lucy dried their tears while drying her own. Those twins became almost like her own children. Now she was 42, a widow, mother to an 18-year-old son who no longer visited, but she still had the energy to love and protect. The mansion was far too large for such a small family. 3,000 square feet of white marble, glass walls reflecting the city skyline, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and a garden that required constant work. There were guest rooms, a home theatre, a library no one used. But it was in that place, within those cold walls, that Ryan and Lauren were being slowly destroyed. The spiral staircase leading to the third floor was where they slept, far from their father, far from any help, perfect for Isabel. Ryan was sensitive, artistic. He wanted to be an illustrator. Lauren was quiet, intelligent, and devoured books in a matter of hours. The two completed each other. When they played together, it was as if all the darkness vanished for a few minutes. But Isabel hated this connection between them. She tried to separate them as much as possible, giving them different tasks, forbidding conversation. "If you talk, you work all night," she threatened. The result, two children who no longer played, no longer laughed, no longer drew or read. They just obeyed. Isabel was 37 and had a history that Lucy discovered out of curiosity on Facebook. She had left a career as a marketing executive because she was tired. In reality, she had been fired for inappropriate behavior with subordinates. There were stories of screaming, humiliation, even one woman who went on stress leave after working with her. But no one mentioned this to Albert, and Isabel was an expert at appearing perfect in front of him. Kisses on the neck, laughter, hugs, love. As soon as he left, her face would change. The smile vanished. Her eyes became empty, malicious. Everything worsened when Isabel decided Ryan and Lauren were too lazy. She started giving them extra chores. Clean the kitchen, wax the hallway, organize the pantry. Initially, they were fair household tasks, but it grew so fast. Now the twins spent 12 hours a day working. They woke at 5 a.m. to clean before school, came home, and started all over again. When they fell into bed, it was already midnight. Lucy saw their grades plummeting. Ryan had gotten an F on a test. Lauren missed classes because she was unwell. Everyone knew the truth, except Albert. And it was at that exact moment that Lucy decided to act. Not with confrontation, but with documentation, with evidence, with the truth. She knew if she spoke without proof, Isabel would simply fire her and be left alone with the children. So she began to record in secret, to photograph their red hands, to save the notes she found pleading for help. 3 months of silent documentation. 3 months of hope that one day someone would be held accountable, that one day Ryan and Lauren would be children again. And in that specific week, everything would change in a way no one expected. The week began like all the others. Ryan woke at 5 a.m. to the silent alarm on his old cell phone. Lauren was already awake, staring at the ceiling with those empty eyes Lucy hated to see. They dressed in silence and went downstairs to start their work before school. The mansion was dark, only the kitchen lights on. This was when Isabel liked to leave special tasks. Today was different, very different. There was an expensive porcelain teacup deliberately broken on the kitchen table, surrounded by shards. Isabel came down in her high heels, already knowing exactly what she would do. "Did you break this?" she asked, pointing to the cup. Ryan and Lauren exchanged frightened glances. "It wasn't us," Lauren whispered. But Isabel was already screaming. "You lie? You lied to me? You will clean up every shard with your bare hands, and then you will pay for this. By working." Ryan tried to speak, but we didn't. A cold hand cut him off. Isabel's face turned purple. "Are you talking back to me?" She pointed to the floor. "Now, clean." Lucy watched everything from the kitchen doorway, hidden, her phone recording. Her heart hammered in her chest. This was the kind of moment she needed to document Isabel's pure villainy, unfiltered, undisguised. She watched Ryan pick up the shards with his hands. She watched Lauren cry silently as she scrubbed. She watched Isabel sit in a chair, drinking her latte, observing as if she were watching a TV show. "If there is a single speck of dust when you're done, you are not going to school today," Isabel threatened. Panic seized Ryan. He had an important test. But he tried to clean faster, despite the blood starting to seep from a cut on his hand. No one would believe Ryan or Lauren if they spoke up. They had already tried. Once, Ryan told his teacher he hadn't done his homework because he was cleaning the house until midnight. The teacher simply noted it down as a weak excuse. Another time, Lauren tried to tell the school counselor about the sores on her hands from working. The counselor said they were just normal household chores. Albert, when he returned from his trips, received Isabel's reports. The twins were unruly. Ryan was disrespectful. Lauren lied to me. And he believed it, because it never occurred to him to question her. He paid the bills, provided the house, and thought that was enough. But Lucy saw everything. For the last 3 months, she had saved evidence on a flash drive hidden in her coat pocket. Photos of injured hands, videos of humiliation, notes she found pleading for help. "Housekeeper, please tell Daddy we are suffering." Lauren had written some of them. Ryan had written others. Lucy guarded them as if they were gold, because they were. They were the truth. They were proof. They were the key to saving the children. But she needed the right moment. She couldn't just show up with the evidence. Isabel would deny it, accuse Lucy of fabricating it, and then things would get even worse for the twins. When Ryan and Lauren finally got to school, their hands covered in fake bandages, hot water burns, Isabel had said to justify them, they could barely concentrate. Ryan didn't take the test. He just stared blankly. Lauren cried in her English class. A classmate asked if she was okay, and Lauren almost told her everything. But Isabel's voice echoed in her mind, "If you tell anyone, you will disappear." Fear, pure fear, kept their lips sealed. But that night, when they returned home and saw Lucy waiting for them in the kitchen, something in their eyes changed, as if they held a flicker of hope. As if this woman could save them, and Lucy, in that exact moment, made a decision that would change everything. She was going to talk to Albert, not alone, not afraid, but with evidence so strong he would be forced to believe. She would call the school, the police if necessary, anyone who could help. But first, there was one more thing that needed to happen. One thing that would lead to the revelation of one of Isabel's much darker secrets. A secret that would make Albert realize he had married someone far worse than he imagined. 5 days later, the tension in the mansion was almost tangible. Isabel had worsened the chores. Now she demanded that Ryan and Lauren clean the balcony windows while the rain poured down. "You'll get wet? Good. At least you'll learn that actions have consequences," she shouted from the living room, warm and dry. Lauren developed a terrible cold. A cough, a fever, a runny nose. But Isabel refused to let her stay in bed. Laziness, she called it. Faking sick to get out of work. Ryan tried to help his sister as much as he could, but he himself was growing weak. His eyes kept closing during class. He had slept maybe 2 hours that entire night. Lucy watched it all, her heart racing. The perfect moment was approaching. She had called Ryan's school and spoken to the principal. "I need to report concerns about neglect at home," she said, trembling. The principal asked her to come to the school. She scheduled it for Tuesday. But before that, something explosive happened. Lucy was cleaning Isabel's office when she found a notebook, a diary. She opened it. What she read made her turn white. Isabel had written pages and pages about her plans. The twins are a burden. Albert is starting to notice they don't love him anymore. Perfect. Soon he'll understand they're ungrateful. Then I can send them to a boarding school. I'll be alone with Albert and his money. When he dies, yes, when I will inherit everything. There is no will mentioning the twins specifically. Lucy closed the diary, her hands shaking. This wasn't just child neglect. This was planning, premeditation, pure malice. Isabel wasn't just abusing the twins because she enjoyed it. She was building a case against them, isolating them from their father on purpose. She was creating a situation where Albert would have reason to disinherit them or send them away. It was manipulation at the highest level. Lucy photographed the pages with her phone, her hands shaking so badly that most of the photos came out blurry. But a few were legible enough. That same day, Ryan collapsed. Literally. He was standing in the kitchen when his eyes rolled back and he hit the floor with a heavy thud. Lauren screamed. Isabel appeared and, instead of calling an ambulance, whispered to Lauren, "If you tell anyone what happened here, I will call child services and tell them you and your brother broke everything you broke and that you're suffering from a mental disorder." It was a clear threat, but Lucy had heard it all. She ran to Ryan, checked his pulse, saw he was still breathing. "Call an ambulance," she yelled at Isabel. "Now!" The ride to the hospital was the longest of Lucy's life. Ryan regained consciousness in the ambulance, but was confused. "Where's Lauren?" he kept asking. Lauren was following in another car, with Isabel now acting extremely polite, because there were witnesses. At the hospital, tests showed severe anemia, malnutrition, and signs of trauma. The doctor pulled Lucy aside. "This isn't accidental. These children are being neglected. I'm going to have to file a report." Lucy took a deep breath and handed over her flash drive with the videos. "Everything you need is right here," she said. The social worker was called. She reviewed the videos, her expression growing more horrified by the second. She asked to speak with Lauren alone. Lauren, finally safe, finally away from Isabel, broke down. "She hits us. She forces us to work. She said we're a burden. She wants to send us away. She hates us." The words poured out in an uncontrollable stream. Lauren told her everything, every humiliation, every injury, every stolen night of sleep. The social worker wrote down every word, her face growing paler with each detail. When Albert was informed, he didn't believe it. "Isabel would never do that," he said. But then they showed him the video. He saw on camera the real face of his wife. He saw Ryan and Lauren suffering. He saw Isabel smiling while they worked. His world collapsed. He had chosen a woman over protecting his children. He had given his love, his money, his home to someone who hated his children. And worse, he had neglected the twins enough to let this happen. That night, Albert cried more than he had cried since Marianne's death. But this time, it wasn't just sadness. It was rage. It was remorse. It was determination. Ryan woke up in the hospital with tubes connected to his arm. His mother wasn't there. His father was, his eyes swollen from crying, sitting in an uncomfortable plastic chair. When Ryan saw him, he cried out, "Daddy!" Albert rushed to his son and hugged him so tightly it almost hurt. I'm sorry, I'm sorry," he whispered repeatedly, kissing Ryan's forehead. "Daddy didn't know. Daddy didn't know you were suffering like this." Ryan wept. 13 months of silent suffering had finally come to the surface. 13 months of sleepless nights, of humiliation, of hunger disguised as discipline. Now, sitting in that hospital bed, Ryan could finally cry. Lauren was in a room next door, also admitted for observation. The fever had passed, but the malnutrition was severe. The pediatrician, Dr. Evans, pulled Albert aside for a private conversation. "Your children show classic signs of prolonged abuse," she said, showing him charts. "Malnutrition, anemia, injuries on multiple parts of their bodies, emotional trauma. This didn't start yesterday. It started months ago." Albert felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. He had let this happen. His negligence had allowed it. His love for one woman had completely blinded his paternal instinct. The hospital's social worker, Mrs. Ross, presented a plan. We are going to document everything. The housekeeper's videos are enough evidence for a criminal case. We need you all to make a formal statement." Ryan and Lauren were prepped by a child trauma specialist. They trembled as they told their stories, but they told them every detail, every humiliation, every night spent hungry. "She said I was chubby," Lauren whispered, her rail-thin body shaking, "that I didn't deserve to eat, that my drawing was horrible, that I was a mistake." Ryan squeezed his sister's hand the entire time, both their faces bathed in tears. Ryan's school sent records of his dropping grades. Lauren's teacher recalled the day she broke down crying in class. The neighbor confirmed seeing a woman screaming at small children on the balcony in the rain. The previous maid who had quit a year ago was located. She had stories too. "When I was there, she was kind to the children," the woman said. "But at night, when the boss traveled, she changed completely, screaming humiliation. I tried to say something once and she threatened to hound me. I left there scared." 8 people had now confirmed the pattern. 8 people from different sources, unconnected to each other. Lucy visited Ryan in the hospital. When the boy saw her, he held out his arms and cried on her shoulder. "You saved us," he whispered. "You saved us." Lucy kissed his head and felt the full weight of those months settle on her. She had done the right thing, but the cost had been high. Her job was likely over. Isabel had vanished, no one knew where. But seeing Ryan alive, seeing Lauren safe, Lucy knew it had been worth every risk. She took Ryan's hand. "You are strong. You are going to be okay. And I will be with you every step of the way." The police arrested Isabel 3 days later. She was trying to flee the country with a suitcase full of Albert's money. The videos, the photos, the testimonies, everything was presented at the police station. Isabel denied it all, of course. "That housekeeper is a liar," she screamed. "The twins are dramatic children looking for attention." But the physical wounds don't lie. The malnutrition tests don't lie. The school records don't lie. The security camera that Lucy discovered, hidden behind a plant, doesn't lie. Everything was recorded. Everything was documented. And now, on that Tuesday night, when Albert gathered everyone in the mansion's living room, Isabel would finally have to face what she had done. The room was cold, very cold. Everyone was there. Albert, Ryan, Lauren, Lucy, Dr. Evans, the social worker, Mrs. Ross, 2 police officers, and Isabel. She had been brought from custody for the confrontation, under a judge's order. She entered, her chains rattling, her face pale, but her eyes still defiant. "This is absurd," she yelled. "These children are liars, and this woman is jealous of me." She pointed at Lucy with contempt. "She always wanted to be part of this family." But Albert raised his hand. Silence. His voice was like ice. He pressed play on the remote control. The large TV screen lit up, and there it was. Isabel, in perfect color and sound, screaming at Ryan as he cleaned the kitchen. "You are lazy! You are weak! You don't deserve to live in this house!" Ryan, in that video recorded 3 months ago, was just 10 and a half. His face was that of someone who had lost his childhood. The audio captured everything, the sounds of his tears, the floor being scrubbed, Isabel laughing. Isabel tried to speak. "I was teaching him discipline." But Albert was already moving to the next video. This one was of Lauren, asleep on her feet while cleaning the balcony window. The child's eyes drooping, blinking, drooping again, and Isabel behind her screaming, "Are you sleeping? Wake up!" Lauren woke with a start, nearly falling off the balcony. Albert's heart hammered in his chest. How? How had he allowed this? "We have 47 videos," Mrs. Ross said calmly, leafing through a file, each one documenting neglect, psychological abuse, and child exploitation. "We also have this." She handed Isabel's diary to the judge who was present. Isabel's eyes went black with pure rage. You invaded my privacy. Ryan stood up. His small body trembled as he spoke. Daddy, she hits us when you travel. She forces us to work until midnight. She says we're a mistake, that Mommy should have died too because she brought us into the world. The boy's voice cracked with every word. Lauren stood up too, holding her brother's hand. She burned our hands when we made a mistake cleaning. She denied us food. She said if we told, she would send us to an orphanage where really bad people would live. Isabel screamed, "They're lying. This is all a lie." But at that moment, Dr. Evans stood up. I examined these children personally. The injuries correspond exactly to what they describe. The scars, the bruises, the pattern of malnutrition, it all fits perfectly with prolonged abuse. There is no doubt in this room about the truth of these reports. Albert looked at Isabel, and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Because she knew she had lost. The videos, the testimonies, the medical records, the diary, everything was against her. There was no going back. There were no excuses that would work. She sank into the chair, defeated. And then Albert stood up. He stood there, trembling with rage and grief, and pointed to the door. Isabel, you will get out of this house now. You will never set foot in here again. You will never see my children again. You will never breathe the same air they breathe. Officers, get her out of here, now. The police grabbed Isabel by the arms as she screamed, protested, and lied. But no one was listening anymore. As they dragged her out, her last shouts echoed through the mansion. You'll regret this. You'll come looking for me. But Albert wasn't listening. He was hugging Ryan and Lauren, kissing their heads, whispering, I'm sorry. Daddy's here. Daddy won't let anyone hurt you ever again. Never again. Lucy, standing in the corner, silently dried her tears. She had done what she had to do. She had saved those children. 3 months later, Isabel was sentenced to 5 years in prison for child abuse and endangerment. The sentence was reported in all the newspapers. Millionaire socialite convicted of torturing step-twins, read the headline. Her career as a socialite ended that night at the police station. Her friends disappeared. Her family disowned her. The woman who had planned to get rich inheriting Albert's fortune found herself locked in a cell, eating prison food, wearing an orange jumpsuit. There was no more perfect smile, no more manipulation. There was only the reality. She was a monster. And the world finally saw it. Lucy received a call from Albert 1 week after the confrontation. I want you to be the house supervisor now, he said. I want you to have an office, triple salary, and total authority over everything here. And most importantly, I want you to be a mother figure to Ryan and Lauren, Lucy cried on the phone. I accept, sir. Don't call me sir, Albert replied softly. Call me Albert. You saved me. You saved my family. How could I call you anything but family? Ryan returned to school 3 weeks later. His classmates whispered about him, but this time it wasn't out of pity. It was out of respect. That boy had survived something most people never could. His teacher noticed a change in his tests. The first one after his recovery earned him an A+ in math. You have a natural talent, the teacher said, smiling. Ryan smiled back. It was the first time in months his face had formed a genuine smile. Lauren started drawing again, small sketches at first, but then larger, more confident drawings, a series of portraits called My Journey, depicting her trauma, her fear, but also her hope. The school entered her into an art competition, and she won first place. Albert became a present father, very present. Perhaps too much at first, victim of his own remorse. But over time, he found a balance. He took Ryan and Lauren to school, picked them up personally, and asked about every detail of their day. He started therapy for his own trauma of neglect. I failed as a father, he told the therapist. I chose a woman over protecting my children. The therapist helped him process the guilt, to understand that he too had been manipulated by a dangerous person. Slowly, Albert rebuilt Ryan and Lauren's trust. The emotional scars would remain, but the love was now real and constant. Lucy won the Greenwich Community Hero of 2025 award. She was interviewed on the radio, on TV. Stories about her circulated. The housekeeper who had silently documented abuse, who had risked her job to save 2 children. Other families began to seek her out. "Do you think my daughter is being mistreated?" a mother asked on the phone. "How did you spot the signs?" Lucy became a sort of unofficial counselor. She offered community workshops on recognizing the signs of child abuse. Dozens of other children were helped because of her courage. Dozens of other families were saved. Ryan and Lauren would never forget. The trauma would remain with them, likely for their entire lives. There were nights when Ryan woke up screaming, having nightmares about Isabel forcing him to work. There were days when Lauren couldn't concentrate because her eyes would fill with tears, remembering a specific humiliation. The therapy continued, but now there was something that hadn't been there before. Hope. There was a future. There was joy in small things, a hug from their father. A chocolate cake Lucy made on weekends, a trip to the park without fear. Albert looked his children in the eyes now and saw forgiveness. Not complete, because the wound was deep, but it was there. Ryan had said one night, "Daddy, you saved us too. You believed us when it was easy not to." Lauren had run into Albert's arms and whispered, "Daddy, we love you. Even after everything that happened, we know you love us now." And that night Albert cried again, but this time not from remorse, from relief, from gratitude for having his greatest treasure back, his children alive, safe, and finally at peace. The mansion changed too. Those third-floor rooms where Ryan and Lauren had suffered were transformed. Ryan asked for an art studio. Lauren asked for a personal library. Albert agreed to both immediately. The kitchen where the children had been humiliated was completely renovated, new walls, new floors, everything new. And now, when Lucy prepared breakfast there, Ryan and Lauren sat around the big table, eating as much as they wanted, laughing, talking about their day. The mansion that had been a place of darkness had become a place of light. And then came the most important part, social justice. Ryan and Lauren's story spread. Other children in similar situations were found, removed from their abusers. Bills were discussed in Congress regarding the protection of children in domestic environments. Isabel's name became synonymous with parental villainy. Support groups for abused children began using Ryan and Lauren's story as a starting point for conversations. "If those children could be saved, you can be too," counselors would say. And children all across the country began to believe it. One night in January of the following year, the whole family sat on the living room sofa. Lucy was there too, because she was now officially part of the family, in writing. Albert put his arm around Ryan and Lauren. Ryan was sketching a new project, an illustrated children's book about a brave housekeeper who saved 2 twins. Lauren was reviewing her art portfolio for a scholarship she had won, and Lucy smiled, knowing she had done the right thing. That all the fear, all the risk, all the courage had been worth it. Because in the end, it didn't matter how many times Isabel had screamed. It didn't matter how many nights Ryan and Lauren had slept hungry. It didn't matter how many humiliations they had suffered. What mattered was that they had survived, that they had been saved, that they now had a bright future ahead of them. And that one simple woman, a housekeeper, had been brave enough to stand up against injustice, because the truth is stronger than lies. Love is stronger than cruelty, and justice finally had won.